Today was my first full day in Costa Rica, and I'm making reels, but I really want this space to be where I get into the deeper stuff that's happening because it's just way too much to try to fit into a reel. If you're watching my reels, I shared a journal entry about how my ex-husband came to visit me in spirit and basically sent me this message. It's so much to talk about, and if you're not woo-woo, that probably is like, what is this bitch talking about? But basically, I was in Mammoth Lakes, California with some of my best girlfriends. Was it last weekend? Memorial Day weekend. It was like signs and synchronicity, one after another, after another, after another. And my ex-husband died in 2019. Even though I have been doing inner work and therapy and done so much inner work around his death and our divorce and all of these things, I guess I needed all of these years of building up my nervous system's capacity and my emotional tolerance before I could take in these messages. I really think up until this point I wouldn't have been ready in the way that I am now at this exact moment to receive these messages from him. I'm just sitting here wondering how many of you I'm losing by even talking about him visiting me in spirit. It's just kind of funny. But when I got these downloads and had this conversation with him, it was such a visceral experience, and this instant knowing the last however many years of my life had made so much sense. And I could see how I had all these defense mechanisms very subtly in place that were just causing some self-sabotage. And he just wanted me liberated from it. It was basically this invitation to really living my life with an open heart. And it reminded me, I don't know if you guys have read the book Untethered Soul. Michael Singer talks about the opening and closing of the heart and how we really can just live our lives with an open heart. So I've been kind of chewing on this idea for, years now. But between getting this message from Jordan and all the inner work that I've already done, I just felt like this is helpful context of what started the first kind of domino of this big heart opening. That weekend when I was with my girlfriends in Mammoth, I kept feeling this invitation. I can lean in or I can dissociate from this. That's always the choice, right? I can dissociate from this, I can shove it down, or I can lean in and cry at the dinner table, or take a second to pull myself away from the group and go cry in my bedroom, or hug a friend with a tear rolling down my face and just let life move through me and let grief and pain move through me. It required me to look at a lot of guilt and pain and grief, and it felt euphoric because I had been unconsciously running from it at this level. And so I've been trying to stay in that place of just, yes, life is crazy and it is so scary sometimes, and it's so hard when you want to just go into a freeze state and collapse. But I'm just trying to let it all flow through me. And so I got back from the Mexico fasting retreat. That next weekend I went to Mammoth, and then I basically had a week, I think, before I had to be packed, find a subletter, find somebody to watch Todd, and I had none of that figured out and was just free falling and trusting the universe because I felt so much like I was supposed to be in Costa Rica, and everything in me wanted to collapse. I wanted to cancel the trip to Costa Rica. It would just feel so much safer just to stay in my apartment, to be with Todd, to not have to do all of this. But I just kept remembering that when I do these higher self meditations and when I think about my future self, this is the shit that I'm doing. I'm traveling, I'm working while I'm traveling, I'm going to cool retreats, I'm meeting cool people, I'm making content that feels authentic and aligned, where I'm actually talking about shit that's real with me. And so that's why I knew it wasn't a time to go easy on myself. It wasn't a time to take the easy route for just caring for my nervous system. It was actually a time to do the hard thing and expand, because it was in alignment with my goals and my values. But oh my gosh, it took so much inner work to get out of the freeze state and to regulate myself enough to post on Facebook that I was looking for subletters, to clean my apartment and get it ready for someone to be living in, to release control of letting a stranger watch Todd, to figuring out what to pack and running all the errands and figuring out a hostel and booking the flight. I had to go to yin yoga every single day to regulate. I was meditating every single day. I was putting my feet on the earth every single day. I canceled plans with friends and just sat with myself. It just took so much intention to be with all the things that were happening in me and to do it with this open-hearted, feel-it-all mentality. I wasn't just shutting down and pushing through and pushing through. I was really trying to be present with all of the discomfort and all the pain and all the fear and all these parts of me that were coming up. It's almost like fear, grief, and pain have become euphoric for me. I know that sounds crazy, but when you're not resisting anything that's coming up, you're kind of constantly in a flow state. And that's how I've felt. Fear comes up, an impulse to close my heart presents itself, and then I become the observer of it and consciously say, nothing is worth closing my heart over. No amount of pain, no amount of fear, no amount of grief. I'm going to remain open for all of it. And it has felt euphoric. This is not the first time in my life I've experienced this, but it is so good to remember that this is available to me. So something like saying goodbye to Todd, it feels so painful and scary that I want to just dissociate and just walk out. But instead, I sat with him and I felt all the pain and the fear and was just so present with Todd, my cat, as I was saying goodbye to him. And when I was overwhelmed with packing, I tried to be so just with that feeling and reminding myself, this is why I came to Earth, to feel it all fully. This is what's going to make it so magical, is that it's not easy. Traveling can be so overwhelming and so stressful. I was presented with like 10,000 opportunities to close, and I actually started tracking them a little bit because it was so fun and euphoric to see all these times that maybe an old version of me, even like 2 weeks ago, would have just kind of like closed my heart or chosen the safer option. And I'm just intentionally choosing love over fear. Okay, so I have a list on my phone. One of them was there was a woman at the airport who I could tell kind of wanted to talk to me. She kept like looking at me, and another version of me would just be like, I'm not in the mood. I'm just going to keep my headphones on. It wouldn't even be totally a conscious decision. It would just be like the easier decision to just like not engage. But because I am so intentional about being in my heart, I took my headphones off and just smiled at her. And sure enough, she started talking. She wanted to talk to me so bad. Again, a past version of me would try to wrap up the conversation kind of quickly and return to what I was doing, like listening to a podcast or something. And I intentionally stayed with my breath and stayed with my body and kept asking myself, Madison, what if you stayed open? What if you just stayed in this conversation? And eventually the conversation wrapped up. She got on the phone and I went back to what I was doing. But I felt so alive and connected just through that interaction. A few minutes later, we were starting to line up for our gates, and they do the groups, like group 1, group 2, whatever. And I was group 2, and I didn't stand up and get ready until like group 4. And when I went up, as I was getting in line, one of the women that were working in there asked what group I was, and I said, I'm group 2. And she was like very insistent that I cut the line. I don't understand those group things. I just wish they would not do those. And I'm like, I don't need to cut the line. And she took the little rope thing, the little divider, and like pushed me out to cut to the front of the line. And she was like talking to me kind of intensely, saying like, go up to the front. So I'm like, okay. Like, I'll go to the front. I go to the front, and then the man who's at the front scanning tickets starts yelling at me to get in line. Like, he thinks I'm cutting everybody. And everybody just saw that this woman was like trying to get me to go to the front of the line. Now I'm at the front of the line, and he's trying to get me to go back in line. And so I'm just like a little bit like, whoa. And again, my heart wanted to close. I wanted to get fucking pissed. I wanted to shut down. I wanted to be embarrassed. I wanted to close. I wanted to close my heart and just go into my headphones and just kind of dissociate. But instead, I kept my heart open, and I smiled, and I breathed, and I took a step back. And it was so sweet because this person in line was obviously like having some empathy for my situation. He's like, hey, come over here, and like helped me get in front of him in line. And he was like, that was crazy. And I was like, I intentionally stayed with my body and was able to connect with this other human and not shut down. Again, a small thing where I just wanted to put my headphones in and escape, but I didn't. And then when I got on the plane, I passed some girl and she was like, hey, and she like grabbed my arm. And I saw how that guy was talking to you and I just wanted you to know I'm so sorry. And it just felt like a little wink from the universe that I chose to stay open and two people were so empathetic and sweet to me. Then I sit down and again have the opportunity to have my headphones on, but this guy is just smiling at me so big, this older man. I took my headphones off and he just started talking about all the things in Costa Rica. He lives in Costa Rica and was giving me all these recommendations, and we had such a fun, sweet conversation. Because my headphones weren't on and because I was engaged in that conversation, the third person in our row came to sit down next to me. And long story short, I realized that he and his mom were separated. She had to sit somewhere else and he had to sit there. And I didn't care where I was sitting. I'm flying solo. So I was able to ask if they wanted to swap so they could be next to each other. And it just felt like one thing after another that felt so in flow with life because I was present in it and not hiding. And then I sat down next to a mom and her toddler. And the toddler was just not having it. And I giggled to myself because I was like, this is exactly what I want. Life is giving me opportunities to close, and I'm going to choose to not close. It would be such an easy thing to get annoyed with a toddler who's like screaming and crying and kicking for 3.5 hours. And I just laughed because I thought I could close my heart and I could be annoyed and I could be irritable, and this could be the worst 4 hours of my life. Or I could open and I can connect. And I looked at the mom and was like, hey, this is going to be hard. We're in it together. And she smiled so big and was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. And I'm like, just let me know how I can help. I was trying to engage with the girl. It wasn't really doing much of anything. But I think just the fact that I was able to remain open, put this mom at ease, and then I wasn't tortured the whole time. Like, here's the big thing that I'm realizing is that closing my heart hurts me and it hurts everybody around me because then I'm in unnecessary suffering. I was able to just stay in my body, stay in my breath. I put my noise canceling headphones on and was able to get some work done. Every time this girl kicked me or screamed, I would just smile. It doesn't have to be awful. One more thing that I want to mention is that on the plane, I was tired. I've been traveling, the kids screaming, all the things. And I remember thinking, I just want to watch Netflix or watch a movie on the screen. But my initial plan was to work on some content editing on the plane. And I was about to turn Netflix on and I thought, wait a second. I've been thinking a lot about the difference between creation versus consumption and how creation is a very open-hearted energy and consumption is often, not always, a very closed-hearted energy, protective energy. And so I was like, damn, I am committed to keeping my heart open. And even though it would be so easy to watch Netflix this entire flight, I sat with my breath, I felt my energy, I regulated my nervous system, and was able to open my laptop and work on content and got in such a fun flow state where I made my first reel that I posted about the trip. And it just felt so good. It took some intention, but once I got into it and regulated my nervous system, I was so grateful that I did it. And just in general, since being here in Costa Rica, I'm not an introverted person. I don't usually go out of my way to try to be in conversation with people. But I'm realizing that when I'm not protecting myself, when I feel the expansion of my heart, I naturally am more warm to people. I am naturally more engaging. I went on a free walking tour this morning, and normally I would just kind of lean back and wait for somebody to introduce themselves to me or something. But I made a point to just say hey, everybody, I'm Madison. I'm visiting from San Diego, and was able to just create a sweet, warm connection and was talking with people the whole time. And it was so great. It's not like I'm just now extremely extroverted and not having any rest. There was tons of people at this hostel doing cool things all day. And I stayed in my room and took a nap. There's tons of people downstairs playing a game right now. This to me is being open-hearted right now. It doesn't always mean just being and doing with what the group is doing. But I wanted to share all these details because it's one thing to say I'm keeping my heart open, and it's another to explain what that is actually looking like. It is the most liberating thing ever to realize that I can tolerate discomfort in any situation. I don't have to close my heart. I am safe in my body, and I get to enjoy life even in the pain, even in the discomfort. It all gets to be euphoric. It all gets to be beautiful. It somehow all gets to be pleasurable. I believe that's why we came here, to experience all of it. Tomorrow I take a bus ride that I think is 6 hours long to RAW REFUGE, where I start the retreat. So stay tuned. Also, I don't know if I mentioned this, but the subletter is in my apartment for a month. So I am traveling for at least a month, maybe longer. And the only thing that I actually have planned is I'm going to RAW REFUGE for at least a week. I could stay longer, who knows? And then after that, I don't have any plans. I'm just waiting to see who I meet, where the universe leads me, where my whimsy takes me. And that's kind of part of the magic of this, is I'm wondering what experiences will come up for me if I just trust the universe and keep my heart open. So, thanks for watching.